Hey there, beer hunters and wedge bankers. Welcome back to another episode of the Beer Huntress. I hope you're all exceptionally well. You may have noticed we've had a slight change of scene and situation for this week. We are now in the home of the Beer Huntress, which is also called the Worley House of Trembling Madness, which is a little homage to the one that's in York. And this is my beer haven. So I thought I'd bring it down here for a little while whilst we're waiting for the studio to be set up and whilst we can't use the pub because the pub is in full swing and fully open. So that's always good for me, but not brilliant for us doing these videos. I've no wheel for today, I'm afraid, because it is quite a big bulky thing. I've not been able to bring it down to here, so I spun the wheel in advance beforehand, so you're just going to have to take my word for it that we landed on pails and IPAs so that I could do this particular beer. Now this is a Brut IPA and this is from Uiltje. This is their Owlie, which is an 8% Brut double IPA. So a Brut IPA is a pretty new style. It's actually only recently been invented in 2018 by the brewmaster of Social Kitchen and Brewery in San Francisco, and they used a particular enzyme in order to be able to create a beer that combines the bone dry aspect of a champagne and also the India Pale Ale. So what they use is something called, now apologies for my pronunciation with this one, I need to get this spot on, it's amyloglucosidase. I hope that's correct, but you'll see it across the bottom anyway, or it's also known as AMG. And what this enzyme does is it removes all the sugars from an IPA, so it leaves you a really crisp, dry, very low IBU beer. And the enzyme is used to traditionally make light beers or to balance out very big beers such as imperial stouts. And when you're using it in an IPA, it's going to create that really dry champagne-esque kind of flavour, and that's where the reference to Brut comes from. It's actually referencing the Brut champagne. Although it started off as a pretty niche market and it's supposed to be the absolute opposite of the really juicy, sweet and dank New England IPAs that were kind of whisking the way across the craft beer community at the time, and still are to be fair, there are now hundreds of different variants of this particular style all over the world. Now stylistically, although there are slight variations in flavour and colour and texture for most of them, they are, majority of them, quite crisp, quite light and somewhat citric, so we're going to get those kind of citrus flavours coming through quite heavily on it. It's not going to look completely out of place as a glass of bubbly on a nice table to make a toast with, and we did exactly the same thing for Wigan Central when we had our 5th birthday party. We had the Brut IPA from Tiny Rebel as our champagne for celebrating us turning 5 years old. So I'm going to check out the artwork on this can and then we're going to crack it open and have a little taste. So they always have these little cute little sayings on the side of all of their cans. I absolutely love Uiltje's artwork, absolutely beautiful. This is there a better icon for a Brut IPA? We think not. Owlie wasn't just the greatest, he's the double greatest, so only a double IPA will do. At 8% it doesn't exactly float like a butterfly, but we promise it stings like a bee. All that Manila thriller hype with a pretty little face. Go ahead, wallop it like Owlie did Frasier. This IPA is beyond humble. So yeah, fantastic artwork. They always have the similar kind of stuff. On the side, they've got the scan to rate on Untappd, so all you wedge bankers out there can get a scan in. Just stunning imagery. Always owl related for Uiltje, and that is because Uiltje means little owl. So there we have it. Looking a little bit murky. Yeah, just a little bit opaque. Really, really beautiful, clear white head on that. Just absolutely clean and clear head. Nice and thick, tight bubbles on it too, which I expected it to be quite like that if we're going to kind of put it down the similar kind of route as a champagne, as it were. Really, really nice, tight, firm head. Yeah, just stunning, light, crisp kind of look to it as well. So the tasting notes for this, I'm expecting this to come out quite lemony. The nose is going to add an awful lot of fruits to it, as well as the kind of balance with the citrusness that's going to come through, and it's just going to be quite complex. But the IBUs on this are very, very low. It's only 6 IBUs, which is really quite remarkable for me for an IPA, because obviously IPAs are quite well known for their bitterness, and they're quite high level bitterness. And average out at around about between, well, about 40 is about average for an IPA. Obviously you can go extreme end, you can get ones that are like 120, 200 and so on and so forth, but for having something that's 6, this is going to be really, really low on the bitterness level, so it's going to be quite an interesting one. The malt in this is Pilsner malt, and it's also got flaked rice in it as well, so that's just going to give it that little bit of extra texture and a bit more body to it. And the hops used in it are Chinook, Mosaic, Simcoe and Nelson Sauvin. So quite a nice complexity of different hop flavours. We're going to get some citrus notes coming through on there. That Mosaic is going to add a little bit of fruitiness to it, and that Nelson Sauvin should really bring that white wine-esque kind of flavour coming through as well. So that's even going to more heighten up that brute IPA level. So let's have a smell. Well, it smells very... it doesn't smell of anything. That's quite surprising. A touch of lemon. I'm gonna have to do the cup and smell. I can just get a hint of kind of a lemoniness to it. There's a little bit of almost kind of, yeah, almost a woody kind of thing coming through. I'm not quite sure what that is. Just smells really, really clean. Hopefully that won't go through onto the taste. I'm wanting something quite full flavoured for an 8%er. Wow, that's really light, really, really crisp. The back of the can says it doesn't float like a butterfly. I don't agree with that at all. I think it really does. It really floats and is very pillowy on the tongue. Really quite delicate. Definitely doesn't taste 8%. The bitterness, absolutely spot on with the IBUs. Really, really low. That citrus is just kicks at the back of the palate, and just a little bit of a tang and a twinge of that citrus. But the flaked kind of rice that's coming through in that body thickened it up a little bit. And the whole thing's actually remarkably well balanced. I was very, very surprised. I was expecting something really, really punchy, and instead I've got something really complex but really quite, yeah, beautifully rounded. Now, Uiltje is well known for its experimental nature of both brewing and the way that they sell their beers as well. The brewery was started in 2012, and it was founded by Robert Uiltje, and it is based in Haarlem, which is in the Netherlands. They didn't really kick off massive production until 2015. In 2015, more than 300 crowdfunders and a very, very crazy bank decided to finance their product and their mission. And Uiltje's mission is to brew fucking good beer, and that is exactly what they used to put on all of their can artwork. Absolutely fantastic way of putting it. But yeah, I don't think there's many breweries out there that would be bold enough to actually put that on the back, but we're all after brewing the best beers that we possibly can do, so they're no exception to this rule. 2016, with this mission, it became a reality, and they were able to open their brand new brewery right in the middle of Haarlem, right in the city, in the middle of the Netherlands. And there's two quite interesting things for me about Uiltje and their brewery and their methods of selling their beer as well. So there's loads and loads of really high-end equipment that goes into their brewing. Now they have a 3,000 litres of beer that they can brew simultaneously that go into 11 fermentation tanks, and that's producing anything from 30 to 60 hectolitres per tank. So the lower capacity is 300 hectolitres every single time that they can brew simultaneously. They have a bottling line that fits 2,800 bottles per hour and fills them up for you, and they also have a barrel filler that fills 40 barrels per hour, so we've got quite a considerable brew kit going on there as well. Now all of their equipment is set up so that it's the absolute top quality, and it ensures that the minimum amount of oxygen goes into any of the beers whilst it's being filled. The other thing that Uiltje do is they do something called their Fast and Fresh program, which is them attempting to get their beer out to people as quickly as possible. So if you sign up to their Fast and Fresh program, obviously you'll need to be in the Netherlands to be a part of it. As soon as they produce a beer, you can have that beer sent to you pretty much within the first week to 2 weeks of it being released, which is a major, major thing. And they believe, very rightly, that IPAs should be as fresh as they possibly can be, and so the fastest and the freshest program is to get their beers out to you so that you can enjoy them fast and fresh. Alongside having some of the most amazing equipment for them to be able to produce their IPAs, they also have their cask room, and their cask room has over 300 different barrels for them to produce their barrel aged products. And they've got rum, wine, whiskey, gin, bourbon, cognac, tons of them. And this is the birthplace of what's called their Sequence series, which is all their barrel aged stuff, and all of their barrel aged products ripen patiently to the music of Johnny Cash. And it actually says that that is no joke. They actually do ripen all of their beers to the constant music of Johnny Cash in their cask room. What a fantastic way to brew your beer. Definitely heavily musically influenced, but yeah, what a wonderful thing to do. I'd love to know what some of the barrel aged beers that I've had from Uiltje were actually listening to at the point when they were being bottled up. That would be so cool. Lastly, they do have a pilot system, which is just a baby little 300 litre unit that they use, and that produces and allows the trainee brewers in order to be able to produce the beers that they need before they go out onto the big boys. There's over 30 people working at this brewery, and they're all after one single mission, which is of course to brew good beer, but at the same time it's to entertain and offer the most opportunity for people to have that moment of escape and from their stress world that they've got by having an absolutely beautiful beer brewed by these guys. So as well as being a fantastic and phenomenal brewery from my perspective, it's not just me that thinks so. They've been rated in the top 100 breweries on Rate Beer twice, and that's in 2017 and in 2020. And it's not gone unnoticed. I think that the Dutch community and over in the UK as well have really taken to Uiltje and really kind of taken on board their beers and thought to themselves, you know what, these guys are producing some phenomenal stuff. And when they're trying to compete against other Dutch brewers such as say Japan, or they're trying to compete against De Molen, you know, they've got some serious competition there, so they've made a fabulous name for themselves to get themselves up there, up with the big boys. And yeah, cheers to them for being able to do it. So back to the beer. Now, its head's dropped a little bit. I'm still not getting very much coming through on the nose. I'm really kind of a bit confused about that. I was hoping for a lot more punch and a lot more heaviness on the nose, but I suppose we don't get the benefit of the Fast and Fresh over here because it's not as easy for them to get it over here. This was delivered to me as a part of a tasting session, a Dutch tasting session, hence the reason why the can's absolutely battered to pieces. Yeah, so we're trying to get them over here as fast as we can, but sometimes, you know, we might not be able to. So it could have lost a little bit of its life because it's not quite as fast and fresh as they would have liked it. But yeah, not as much on the nose as I was expecting. It's almost kind of gone a little bit, I don't want to say this and make it sound offensive, I really don't, but it's almost kind of gone a little bit chamomile-y. I've got that kind of almost, oh God, this is going to sound awful. It smells a little bit like germaline. It really does, which is a really horrible thing to say, but it just doesn't seem to have much kind of punch from the hops or anything like that coming through. The body, however, And on the palate, totally different story. The nose lets it down at first, but then as soon as you taste it, you've got that really, really beautiful, thick, pillowy, creamy body to it because of all that gorgeous, balance with the using the rice in there as well as using just the Pilsner malt too. It's got this extra layer to it. The 0 level of bitterness, always going to be a big winner for me. I'm not particularly a big fan of really, really harsh, bitter IPAs. When the IBU race was happening and everyone was whacking up their IBUs, I was definitely on the other side, wanting more New Englands and things like that. So I'm loving the fact that it's quite low on its bitterness in that respect. And the hop profiles in this are coming through quite nicely. The citrus is definitely there. Mosaic's always going to have a really, really kind of a big impact for me. It's one of my most easily identifiable hops that I can get. So I like the fact that I can get that mosaic across the front. The Nelson Sauvigne's going to add that little bit of that winey-esque kind of flavour, just lending me a little bit more towards it being a bit of a brut IPA and getting that kind of champagne-y, winey, that kind of thing going on. Yeah, really, really gorgeous body, really complex, really beautifully balanced. Far too easy drinking for 8%, I have to say. I just missed that little bit on the nose. I wish that it smelt how it tastes, but you can't have it always, can you? Well guys, if you've had this, then let me know in the comments what you thought of it. As always, I hope you've enjoyed watching this video as much as I've enjoyed drinking this beer. We shall do a few more videos in the Owlie House of Trembling Madness before we move on to the next studio. So in the meantime, do as Uiltje says, get out there rating, get yourself on Untappd, keep waj banking, and I shall see you next time for another episode of the Beer Huntress. Cheers!
If you enjoyed this video guys, then please like, subscribe and share it with your friends. Hit that notifications button to get alerts when our new video is out. We're also on Facebook, Twitter and on Instagram, so check out the links in the description and follow us on there as well. If there's anything you'd like to see us review, please pop it in the comments and we'll pop it in the pump for later. Keep waj banking and I shall see you all next time for another episode of The Beer Huntress.